Hello, everyone, and I'm Dr. Rashmi Sarkar. I'm a board member of the ILDS and also the chair of the ILDS Education Committee, which brings you these master webinars, and we really hope these will be useful to all our ILDS members and the dermatologists. So May is always observed as the Skin Cancer Awareness Month, and this is mainly to make the public familiar with the early prevention of skin cancer, how to detect cancer, and to also visit a dermatologist whenever there are such lesions. So, like last year, we like to talk to you about some of the newer modalities of diagnosis in the treatment of skin cancer. And as per our promise, we bring you a webinar which is on artificial intelligence in dermatology. We know that artificial intelligence is here and it's here to stay. So the better we use it and incorporate it in our dermatology practice, the better it will be for all of us and for all our patients. So we have with you today in our very interesting session, three very well-known global dermatologists, and they're going to bring to you different topics on artificial intelligence in dermatology. We have Dr. Trilokraj Tejasvi, who will be talking about the use of large language models in dermatology. Dr. Amanda Oakley from New Zealand, who will talk about AI tools to support teledermatology. And finally, Professor H. Peter Soyer is going to speak to you on a reinforcement learning model for AI-based decision support in skin cancer. So I'm just going to introduce them one by one. Dr. Trilokraj Tejasvi is, of course, a professor in the United States of America. He is a professor of dermatology at Michigan Medicine University of Michigan and also the director of the Cutaneous Lymphoma Program and Teledermatology Services. He happens to be the chief of dermatology service at the Ann Arbor Veterans Affairs, while also being the president of the International Society for Digital Health in Dermatology. He has also been the former chair of the Teledermatology Committee and Teledermatology Special Interest Group of the American Telemedicine Association. He has authored more than 95 publications in national as well as international peer-reviewed journals, which include Nature Genetics, Journal of Investigative Dermatology, JAD and JAMA Dermatology. He is a very popular speaker, and I'm sure that you will love listening to him today. We all know Dr. Amanda Oakley mainly because she has created the DermNet. She's from New Zealand, a dermatology with practical and academic interests in medical education, teledermatology, and artificial intelligence. She is an honorary professor at the University of Auckland and the University of Waikato. She is also best known for creating DermNet, a popular online dermatology resource. So I'm sure it's going to be a treat to listen to her how to use AI tools in dermatology. Finally, we have Professor H. Peter Soyer from Australia. I'm sure that you're all familiar with his name. He is an academic dermatologist with over 30 years of experience. He has a research focus on skin cancer, including melanoma and keratinocyte skin cancers, and a publication record of 843 publications with more than 19,000 citations and an H index of 80. He's a pioneer in the dermoscopy of pigmented skin lesions and has led the development of a classification system which has been taught worldwide. His recent research focuses on artificial intelligence in dermatology, and definitely he'll talk to you more about AI and its usage in the detection of skin cancer. So we have with you three very globally known popular speakers, but we also have with you three very pertinent topics in artificial intelligence. I'm sure that we are all very keen to learn from them. Now, remember that we are using this through a YouTube live chat. So if you have any questions, please submit your questions or comments throughout the webinar, and the speakers, they will either answer your question in the chat or they will get back to you later. So Thank you very much. And now I'm going to turn it over to all the three speakers to talk to you about AI in dermatology. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dr. Tejasvi from University of Michigan, and thank you, Dr. Sarkar and ILDS for this opportunity. I don't have any conflicts about being the president of the International Society for Digital Health in Dermatology, and I'm also currently the deputy chair of the AAD Health Informatics and IT. Welcome, everyone. All the dermatologists from every corner of the globe. Today, we are talking about large language models, or LLMs, which is basically a fancy way of saying a very well-read autocomplete. These systems have ingested more text than any human could read in 1,000 lifetimes. They've read it, all of it, and somehow they're still useful. Let's explore what this means for our practice. As dermatologists, what are the things we love to do? Taking care of our patients, talking to them about their concerns. We love diagnosing things, right? We went to school for that. We love giving meaningful treatment recommendations. What are some things which we really have to do it? It's essential but redundant. One is documentation, messages, scheduling, prior auth, letters, and education. If I polled every dermatologist in this room right now, I would bet my dermatoscope. And for people who know me, my dermatoscope means a lot. That prior authorization would get a resounding chorus of groans, at least in the US. You went to medical school for how many years? To spend 40 minutes on a hold with an insurance company defending your prescriptions of Dupy? Somewhere, a philosophy student is writing their thesis about this very paradox. The good news, LLMs are about to become your very enthusiastic administrative intern. So in the next 15 minutes, let's see what LLMs can do. It definitely can answer patient portal messages, write amazing research protocols, draft patient instructions on education materials, and prepare notes from your patient conversation. Let's dive in. Here is a real patient portal message. Good morning. I had to take out all the metal caps and cavity fillings from my mouth because of my oral lichen planus. The dentist asked me to find out from you all if they could use zirconia or lithium silicate for crowns and for dental implants. Further, she wanted to know if this condition would have allergies with nickel or chromium. This patient, who clearly spent some quality time on WebMD and then some, needs an answer about the lichen planus, zirconia crowns, lithium silicate, nickel allergies, and dental implants on a Tuesday afternoon after a full clinic. This is why we study dermatology, right? Because we secretly wanted to become dental material science consultants. Let's see what happens when we outsource this to our AI colleague. Boom, 45 seconds. That includes the time it took to paste the question in. For context, it takes longer than that to find a parking spot in your hospital. The workflow is simple. Copy the patient's message, paste it into ChatGPT with a quick framing like, as a dermatologist, please draft a patient portal response to this question. Review the output, lightly edit, and send. The patients get a thorough answer. Everyone wins. And here is the edited response. Notice it covers lichen planus triggers, safe materials like zirconia is good, nickel is bad, and it mentions non-metallic alternatives. And compare this to spending 5 to 7 minutes searching PubMed, drafting from scratch, second guessing yourself, and then getting distracted by a different portal message. ChatGPT isn't replacing your clinical judgment here. It's replacing the time you spent typing the word biocompatible. Important. Always, always. review and edit the AI response before sending. AI can confidently be wrong, and the patients trust you, not the robot. Now, here is the physician generated response. It's excellent, detailed, specific, even names particular implant brands. This is what years of training and clinical experience produce. The point isn't that AI can replace the level of expertise. The point is you already have the expertise. You shouldn't have to spend 7 minutes typing it in every single time. Let AI handle the drafting. You handle the judgment call and the final review. Think of it as having a very fast medical typist who has read all of up to date. Math doesn't lie, and neither does burnout. 11 minutes versus 75 minutes per week. That's over an hour saved every single week just on portal messages. 3 messages a day, 5 days a week, that's over an hour each week just on portal messages. Times 50 working weeks a year, that's 62 hours annually spent answering patient portal messages. That's almost 2 full work weeks. Imagine what you could have done with 2 weeks: a vacation, a research project, sleeping. Any of these are medically superior to inbox management. And portal messages are just the tip of the administrative iceberg. Prior auth letters, referral summaries, patient handouts, research protocols. When you add it all up, AI assisted workflows could give you back at least 2 to 3 hours in a week. That could go towards seeing more patients, research, teaching, or honestly, just having a lunch break like a human being deserves. The above example, which we just discussed, was part of our study. The key finding was that that's been replicated across other studies too. AI responses are often rated as equally satisfactory for routine informational questions, but fall short for complex clinical nuance. Think of it as a spectrum: routine administrative content, AI shines; complex differential diagnosis, AI can assist and you decide; and final clinical judgments, always you. The sweet spot for most of us is letting AI handle the 80% that does not require your full expertise so we can focus on the 20% that does. Beyond portal messages, the applications are genuinely exciting. The Teledermatology guidelines letters for PCPs, it can draft it in seconds. Patient handouts in 12 languages, done. Research protocol outlines. ChatGPT will generate a 7-page NIH format proposal faster than you can think, or find the right template on your institution website. And yes, this very presentation was partly created using AI. We are not ashamed. We are efficient. That's called working smarter, not harder, and also practicing what we preach. So look at this prompt. It's beautiful in its specificity. There's 7 pages, 30 references, 3 aims, specific sections, and draft at a graduate level language. And here is the thing. ChatGPT actually does it. Not perfectly though. References need verification. AI sometimes hallucinate citations, which is the technical term for making things up. But the structure, the logic, the flow is a solid starting point, right? What used to take us days of painful blank page now takes 20 minutes of editing. For junior researchers and training, this is transformative. So the prompt which we just reviewed was part of our study where we used open access AI platforms to generate this research protocol. All of them generated pretty efficient research protocol within seconds to minutes. When we compared it to the human written proposal, ChatGPT scored the highest accuracy. And one thing which we realized is that looking at other studies, that it would take around more than 100 principal hours, 55 co-investigator hours, and 38 working days to generate uh, such kind of proposals. So the key takeaways from the narrowband UV study is AI can generate a credible research framework rapidly, but it requires expert review for clinical accuracy. References must be verified. As I said, AI has a well documented tendency to invent citations that sound plausible but don't exist. Think of it as a very confident student who skipped the bibliography assignment. Also, AI generated protocols still need IRB review, institutional approval, and the same rigorous scientific process as any other protocol. AI speeds up the drafting. That's it. It doesn't replace the science. This is an excellent example of prompt for a patient-friendly handout on pityriasis rosea for parents who have no medical background. Prompt is a craft. A craft stands for context, role, action, format, and target audience. This is your prompting superpower. The quality of what you get out of LLM is entirely dependent on what you put in. Vague prompt, vague answer. Specific, structured prompt, genuinely useful output. The craft framework is basically how you become a sommelier of AI prompts. So moving along, the next two things are like how can it draft patient instructions or patient education? We know we dermatologists serve the whole world, and not all our patients speak English fluently. Some may need it in their language and in their own script. ChatGPT can produce patient instructions in all of these languages, um, but make sure you always have a qualified translator or a bilingual staff member to review all these AI translations before you give it to the patient. It can also produce excellent patient education materials, especially when you're planning for a procedural dermatology. What is the procedure, what happens during the procedure, what are the things which you need to do post procedure. So you can generate all of this in seconds. You can even draft patient education handouts in different languages, like in Swahili, Rafiki. Moving on from drafting patient education and patient instructions, the other important thing which we should be discussing is medical scribing. It's probably the single highest value application of AI in clinical medicine right now. Tools like Ambience, DAX, Suki, and others listen to your patient encounter and generate a structured clinical SOAP note. It could add diagnosis codes. It can put a plan for you. While all of this while you're talking. You leave the room with a draft note. You review it, edit it, sign, and that's it. Instead of staying 2 hours after the clinic to finish charting, you go home. That's not a small thing, right? Because physician burnout is real and documentation burden is a major driver, and AI scribing directly addresses it. If you can take one thing from this talk, look into AI scribing. And now for the part where we pump the brakes. AI in healthcare raises real ethical questions that deserve serious considerations. For example, data privacy. Where does the patient's portal message go when you paste it in ChatGPT? You should always check with institution policies. Hallucinations. AI generate confident but wrong medical information, and it's not a hypothetical risk. And most of the AI trained material is on a certain population, and so it may perform worse for others. That's the reason why we should include dark skin tone images while doing dermatology image analysis. And also, relying heavily on LLM could be potential issue too, like if there is technical failure or cyber attack, or over reliance could potentially degrade our clinical skills as practitioners because we become accustomed to receiving assistance from the AI. These are not reasons to avoid AI. These are reasons to use it carefully. So the ethical framework for an AI in medicine isn't that different from any new technology. Ensure there is no compromise in quality or bias of training data. Address job displacement. At the end of the day, the most important question is, who's responsible if AI makes an error? AI does not have a medical license. You do, and so the liability is yours. This isn't scary. It's clarifying, right? Use AI as a tool. Remain the clinician, review everything before it reaches the patient. The bar for quality does not change just because a machine helped draft the content. And finally, which LLM should you use? The short answer is start with ChatGPT. It pretty much does everything. If you're considering a medical literature search, I recommend Perplexity AI or Open Evidence. And if you're planning a systematic literature review, Elicit does a good job. The best LLM is the one you will use consistently. Pick one, learn its strength, build it into your workflow. Thank you, and see you in Guadalajara.
Hello everybody, my name is Amanda Oakley. I'm a dermatologist in New Zealand. It's my pleasure to talk to you about AI tools to support teledermatology. My statements of interest relate to my academic appointments, my conflicts for this talk, and the use of AI for this talk. Teledermatology can use live synchronous video consultation or store and forward asynchronous teledermatology. For this talk, I'm going to concentrate on store and forward asynchronous teledermatology. AI tools for dermatology matter because of the dermatologist shortage worldwide, long waiting times, including for teledermatology in many places, an aging workforce, rural access gaps, and an explosion of patient-generated images. Besides that, we have an increasing skin cancer burden. And teledermatology works well for diagnosis of skin cancers, providing you're using dermoscopy. We know that the ideal number of dermatologists per million population doesn't match what's actually in place worldwide, and very few places match the 40 dermatologists per million recommendation. AI in teledermatology has evolved over the years. In 2015, that's really only 11 years ago, CNN lesion classifiers began to be talked about. The hallmark 2017 Stanford skin cancer CNN study achieved dermatologist equivalent results in a laboratory. In 2020, we were all using a lot more teledermatology because of COVID worldwide. In 2022, the AI triage tools began to emerge relating to smartphone use. In 2023, we started seeing the GPTs. These have vision models in some of them. Their quality and output wasn't very good, but by 2026, it's become completely amazing. In 2024, multimodal dermatology LLMs were produced. That is to say, they used images and text information to come up with their recommendations. And in 2025, we began to see AI-assisted triage pathways in some hospitals. I'm going to talk about some examples of AI tools supporting teledermatology. This is a table produced by ChatGPT of some examples it found. I will select a few. Unimodal, convolutional neural networks, and deep learning applications have become established in the last few years. So let's describe what those are. A convolutional neural network, or CNN, is a system producing a binary outcome such as, is this malignant or not? It requires data, but not nearly as much as data as the deep learning CNN systems, which are designed to learn more complex representations and result in more detailed results, such as a differential diagnosis rather than just a binary outcome. The deep learning needs a lot more images and can learn from features automatically. So we can have a binary classification, or tertiary in this case, so benign, intermediate, or malignant, using dermoscopy images through the deep learning type of CNN, classifying the images and deciding what proportion are benign or malignant, and giving it a number to represent the confidence intervals. So in this case, the malignant diagnosis at the top got a 77% result of being likely true. Whereas if we use a more sophisticated device with greater data, we can get a more sophisticated differential diagnosis where melanoma, in this case, is 62% versus other options. These should not be relied on without a human to supervise, because the information needs to be integrated with clinical history, examination, and patient context. Here's two examples. So skin analytics have been in the UK for several years now, and have 25 partners in the National Health Service using their AI called DERM. And DERM can classify images as a benign, intermediate, or malignant, and anything that's benign, they have an autonomous class 3 CE mark, allowing them to discharge the patients. The analytics can give a diagnosis and help the dermatologist with all the other lesions that go to it in teledermatology. So the GP refers, the patient goes to an imaging centre to have the image captured. Skin analytics DERM assesses the images and either sends the patient an outcome letter confirming it's benign and discharging from the skin cancer pathway, or that it's pre-malignant or malignant, and a dermatologist will then look at images and text and decide what's best for the patient. Another example is here in New Zealand, where MoleMap New Zealand, a teledermatology pathway present since 1997, uses Kahu, its AI specifically trained on its images with its cameras. It's used in two forms. First of all, the nurse who is evaluating the patient uses the AI when imaging skin lesions to eliminate those that are benign, and the dermatologist can use the AI for a second opinion if required. So that all sounds like black box AI. We'd like to be able to understand how AI works, and some attempts to do that have been termed explainable AI. So heat maps visually display which parts of the lesion influence the AI diagnosis and give it a colour according to whether it's influential or not. Confidence scoring flags uncertainty and makes us understand that the diagnosis could be wrong. And attention maps reveal how multimodal AI weighs both the image and the clinical history to come up with the correct answer, or at least what the AI thinks is correct. So here's an example of this. This is a photo finder application used for dermoscopy surveillance. On the left, we see the image taken at time line 1, and on the right at another time point. The images look very slightly different, but both heat maps show green and yellow, which means no worries. This software also color codes according to the confidence intervals, and is color coded in the yellow or benign area, and also gives a confidence score. Multimodal applications are what modern AI can actually do, although it's not often in use in teledermatology to date. So the lesion can be classified using macroscopic images as well as dermoscopy images. A differential diagnosis can be generated for lesions and for rashes, prioritizing the triage, stratifying risk, supporting documentation, translation if required, and adding patient information. So we want a system in the clinic to help us, particularly if we're not all that experienced. The AI can analyse the image, process the clinical metrics, fuse the two, and produce a risk score classification or a differential diagnosis, and perhaps add clinical documentation. But the dermatologist has the patient in front of them, can review what the AI says, understand where the artifacts come in, and can either accept or override the recommendations. So if we compare in-person with teledermatology, the teledermatology is enforced by the fact that the dermatologist not present to check the images, so needs some automated image quality filter. The AI needs to be able to triage things that are urgent to the top of the queue, and the data capture is done by a non-specialist or sometimes in the patient, depending whether it's a referral from primary care to a dermatologist or a consumer. Here's an example. DermEngine has a standard teledermatology arrangement. The patient takes images of the spot, securely sends the images through DermEngine to the dermatologist, who reviews the images and any other textual information and sends a report to the patient. But DermEngine has some supportive tools that can help a trained medical professional to this as a second opinion. So there's the advanced image search and MoleMatch, which looks at 2 points in time, tries to support the evaluation showing new images, new lesions or changed images. And if you're lucky, you could purchase the DermEngine's 3D Optima scan, where the AI is used for various pathways within that and could help in the future the teledermatology pathway. But we really need an end-to-end AI-supported digital solution. Why just use it for diagnosis? We need the patient to upload an image that's been assessed by AI to make sure it's in focus, to analyze the lesion, to prioritize the importance of it, to provide the dermatologist with a differential diagnosis. Then the dermatologist looks at all the information, checks the AI's automated documentation and changes it if necessary, and arranges for patient follow-up if necessary. This should enhance workflow efficiency, reduce costs, and improve equity of access. The example I'm giving you for this digital dermatology hospital of supervised AI is with AIP Laboratories program AIP Derm. This is very comprehensive with up to 700 skin conditions recognized with the macro module, and the dermatologist can choose from a differential diagnosis or select another one and add snippets to produce the outcome for the patient. But some patients nowadays bypass teledermatology and go straight to the computer themselves. They could do that by patient-initiated consultation with a GPT. Now, a GPT, or generative pre-trained transformer, can create new content. It's trained by analyzing billions of pages of text and works by predicting the next word in a sentence. These are large language models. They can diagnose accurately given the right prompts. Your patient can upload a picture of their skin problem, add clinical context, and get an accurate diagnosis. This example here was published by Clinical and Experimental Dermatology in August 2024. This one in Nature, July 2024. The patient has a skin disease, takes a picture, Skin GPT-4, analyzes it, provides a diagnosis, and has a conversation with the patient regarding more about the disease, its treatment. But remember, GPTs are not directly comparable. They vary enormously in capability, especially in clinical work, and can hallucinate. So here's some examples of the LLMs that have been used for clinical purposes. I created a standardized prompt of a 62-year-old man with a melanoma on his scalp and asked 4 GPTs to come up with some responses. So Google's AI, or Gemini, was able to do that without any difficulty in very few seconds, as was ChatGPT from OpenAI and Claude from Opus. Then I asked DermGPT, a specific GPT for dermatologic issues. This is a nice outcome, very neat, same content but expanded. Differential diagnosis, level of concern, next step, limitations, but adds a summary table. Things to bear in mind. Performance versus reality. Do they really work? What about if the images aren't very good quality? Does it work in dark skin as well as white skin? Is the GPT or whatever AI you're using have a selection bias towards a certain diagnosis, thinking, for example, there's a ruler in it, it must be malignant? Regulation and liability is a very important component. The human is responsible for errors. There are various regulations of AI. They're very sophisticated and complicated. Luckily, in New Zealand, we have very few at present, although more are planned. So AI is considered a software, a medical device, and privacy concerns are paramount. Medical Council of New Zealand has produced guidelines for practitioners. As a last step, let me tell you about hallucinations. Yes, they exist. Fabricated diagnoses, confident inaccuracies, and unsafe recommendations. We must use human oversight here. So I asked a GPT to produce a word cloud of skin diseases and asked it to not include any lesions. And it's got lots of made-up skin diseases in the word cloud and spelling errors. Let's imagine a workflow where the patient approaches automated teledermatology and it gives them the wrong diagnosis, so that melanoma has now become a seborrheic keratosis. Well, that's okay, but now it fabricates reasoning and explains why it made this diagnosis, and it's a load of rubbish. So we need a dermatologist to produce the right answer. So if the image quality is bad, or it's had poor data, or not trained properly, it can make it up. And this is particularly vulnerable in teledermatology because the history may be incomplete and we've got limited information. So we could miss melanomas, we could delay referral, falsely reassure our patients, and result with the wrong treatment. So AI in teledermatology is here. It's here to stay. It can do lots of different things, and it's going to do that more and more and get safer as time will go on. But what won't change is the human clinical judgment, contextual reasoning, therapeutic relationships, not to mention the fact that we can do procedures and we understand ethics. The dermatologist at the centre of the consultation is essential, but AI can enhance what we do. It's going to get better. It's evolving rapidly, and we need to understand that it won't replace us, but it will mean that dermatologists using AI may do better than those who are not. It will also help primary care to reduce unnecessary referrals. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Peter Soyer. I'm professor of dermatology at the University of Queensland in Australia. And it is indeed my pleasure today to speak about AI in diagnosis of skin cancer. In the spirit of Australia, the Australian culture, I like to start with a very short acknowledgement of country. I also have to declare potential conflicts of interest, as you see here on this slide. But let's now start into artificial intelligence. And I think it's fair to say that there are various disciplines involved in artificial intelligence, computer science, mathematics, machine learning. But from our point of view, of course, domain expertise. And our domain expertise is obviously dermatology. And I also like to share with you a slide from the father of AI, Professor John McCarthy from Stanford University, who is quite famous for his saying, in order for a program to be capable of learning something, it must first be capable of being told it. I mean, the simpler version is garbage in, garbage out. And speaking of Stanford, it's actually quite an interesting aspect of history that really the first dermatology publication on AI in skin cancer worldwide was came out from Stanford University. And they trained a neural network on skin lesion images. And as you can see, they compare this with 21 board-certified Stanford dermatologists. And this paper clearly showed the promise of AI in dermatology. Quite soon, a couple of years later, there is another very relevant paper about the deep learning system for the differential diagnosis of skin diseases, came out of the Google Health Group. And you see that the deep learning system is actually slightly better in regard to the top one, but also top three diagnosis compared to dermatologists, and clearly better to primary care physician and nurse practitioners. In the same year, there was a publication led by the Vienna group, and I was kindly invited to be a co-author about human-computer collaboration for skin cancer recognition. And this study asked what type of AI is best for supporting dermatologists. And interestingly enough, the AI-based multi-class probability scored best. Interesting enough, inexperienced clinicians benefited the most from support, but also faulty AI can mislead the entire spectrum of clinicians, including experts. And the colleagues from Vienna, they are quite cheeky. And just to demonstrate this on one example, they showed this actually excellent dermoscopic image, and they provided AI probability diagnosis and were saying this is a seborrheic lentigo, LBLK, like blindness like keratosis, and quite a few colleagues are falling into the trap. Of course, the more experienced the people are, the less they are falling into the trap. But it's still quite interesting that we humans then believe the computer, what the computer is saying. So then this is a big issue in its own right. This killing of workforce if then AI kicks in. So just to highlight this better, and again, the more experienced you are, the less you fall into the trap, but still, it is a substantial trap. Another manuscript on this topic published in Nature Medicine a couple of years later basically was focusing on the value of reinforcement learning for AI-based decision support in skin cancer. And as you can see in the right upper corner, there are basically award tables, and there are different awards. For example, if you excise a melanoma, you get a high positive award. If you dismiss a melanoma, you get a high negative award. And if you excise a benign lesion, it's also a negative award, but a slightly lower negative award. So this reinforcement learning model performed best in dealing with melanoma and BCC as told by clinicians. So basically what this paper says, it is so important that there is a close interaction between AI experts and clinicians, or let's say more general domain experts. But let me now share a little bit with you the work which we are doing based on artificial intelligence and integrating risk stratification for melanomas. There is, of course, a clinical phenotype and then the genotype, and I'd just like to walk you through this. We are using for our research projects the melanoma risk assessment from the Melanoma Institute Australia, which was developed based on validated risk prediction studies. And to be honest, it works relatively well. Of course, not perfect, but it's easy to use. It's free, and it's something what we use on a daily basis in our research studies. We have then, together with our colleagues, particularly from the Monash University and the University of Sydney, developed a skin surface imaging phenotype which encompasses a few aspects: the number and the size of nevi, a freckling score, degree and area of UV damage, and of course also, which is quite important, the delta between the innate skin color and the facultative skin color. And this is still a work in progress, but we have quite a few aspects of this work we have already published in detail. Let me now switch a little bit and speak about the genetic predisposition to melanoma. This slide shows two persons who both had several melanomas, one, two, the other three, under the age of 40. And if you look with your dermatologic eye, you will immediately say, not surprising for the gentleman on the left side, he definitely has a so-called dysplastic nevus syndrome or a larger typical nevus syndrome. With the lady on the right, basically, you don't see any nevus. She has light brown hair. So it seems that she is not a risk person. But then, if you look at her germline genetics, one sees that she has a DNA repair defect. And obviously, this explains the fact that she had two melanomas already under 40. Speaking about these melanoma genes, I like just to make a bit of a joke. There are two guys speaking, and one say, hey man, I got the gene, the melanoma gene. Figure if I'm doomed anyway, I may as well get bronzed. And the others say, just heard I don't have the melanoma gene, so I can catch some rays worry-free. It's a bit of a joke, but it's also one of the issues related to, if you know your genetic risk, genetic determinism, genetic fatalism. It's a topic in its own right where a lot of research is going on worldwide, not just in melanoma, to be honest, in many cancers, cardiovascular risk, depression, and so on. But let me now switch a little bit to the clinical challenge. I bet quite a few of you have seen patients like on the left with many, many scars, and this gentleman may have one melanoma, but obviously many nevi, and there is then often an anxiety on the side of the patient, also an anxiety on the side of the doctor to miss any melanoma, and then every lesion is more or less, every lesion is cut out. And it's, of course, not so easy to always find the melanoma. Also, we have been trained to do this. One of the ideas is from the research perspective to develop patient-centric data sets of images and metadata for identifying melanomas using clinical context. And let's say if I would ask you, are any of the following lesions melanoma? I mean, the more experienced colleagues would say, yeah, my God, this is not so easy. I see actually a few melanomas here. But if I give you the clinical context and say the 6 lesions on the left side are from one patient and the 6 lesions on the right side are also from another patient, it will be actually quite clear that the AI, as we must be told the context. We see the context, but the AI needs to be told this context to basically identify then the melanomas. I like now to share with you also 2 clinical examples, which we do with 3D total body imaging and dermoscopy over time. This is a 60-year-old lady who had in 2018 in cytomelanoma. Actually, she had 2 in cytomelanoma, and then we started her in February 2020 with this lesion. But we did follow up over a longer time period, 6 monthly, and the so-called change module in the Vectra VP360 shows that this lesion is clearly changing. And here we have now shared with you basically again the clinical and dermoscopy images and then the 3 time points which we have. And you see quite clearly that the lesion was growing over the time. You also see that the so-called pseudodermoscopy, basically the clinical image, allows you to witness the growth. And of course, in all fairness, the question is, when started the melanoma? Was it a nevus at the beginning, also in August 2019 a nevus, and then it switched to a melanoma, or was it already melanoma earlier? The so-called DEXI score, which is an integrated score based on dermoscopic images, shows you that in this specific case, at least according to the artificial intelligence, the melanoma is just detected in February 2020. But again, lots of research needs to be done to find the correct threshold. And it's also fair to say that at this moment, the AI systems integrated are not yet accredited by our agencies. So it's still research work needs to be done. I'd like to share with you now a second example. This is actually a patient who had a melanoma 20 years ago in cytomelanoma. But as you can see, we are also in this case doing imaging over time. And if you see the image on the back, you realize that this gentleman had many excisions. Obviously, he's also very, very concerned about his moles. And so he's very keen that many of his lesions are excised. And what you see here is that actually quite nicely, even on the clinical image, that most of the lesions don't change at all. But then if you look into the red circle, you see that in the age 46 in 2019, nothing here. Here is a tiny dot. And a year later, there is, to my eye, a clear-cut benign nevus. Obviously, the change module based on the clinical images clearly shows that the lesion is growing. And just to share you then the context, this gentleman has obviously over 300 nevi over 2 millimeter, over 30 with 5 millimeter. And of course, because of his story that he had just in cytomelanoma, but he was very anxious. To be honest, I made the call to excise this lesion. Also, I was pretty sure that this is just a benign nevus. And indeed, it was a benign nevus. And this shows how complex the issue is between AI and dermatological skills and so on. So we are on a very steep learning curve in this context. I'm coming now to the end of my presentation, and it's actually this slide is a little bit of a joke. This is how I look without glasses when I look at the patient. And if I look with glasses, I at least see the moles. And then, and this is of course a fake image. If I mean the image is right, but it's these are not augmented reality glasses. But assume this would be augmented reality glasses, then I might be automatically get the correct diagnosis within the glasses. And in this case, it would tell me, okay, this is most likely the outlier, the ugly duckly, a high percentage of melanoma, lower percentage of the nevus, and would recommend excision of this lesion. This is obviously just to share a little bit how it might work in the future anyhow. My last slide, I'm just citing Emad Mostak. He was the founder and CEO of Stability AI. In the meantime, he has moved on. But his statement, AI is not going to replace humans. But humans with AI will replace humans that don't use AI. This statement resonates quite well with me, and I think it might also resonate with quite a few of you. So I like to thank you for your attention and wish you a nice day or a nice evening wherever you are in our beautiful world. Thank you so much.